So I guess with just the two of you, or how are both of you making out? Like, bring me up to speed on where your status is and what you've done, and
Well, I'm just playing around with it right now. Um, Thanks to all your instructions last week on the camera, I've got the nice egg yolk kind of background now. And so, starting to do some real things with it. I've noticed that sometimes, and this is not a constant thing, and I can't link it to any other electronic things going on in the room where I'm doing the recording, but sometimes the background flickers a lot. Doesn't show up in photographs, but it's like if I looked at it too long, it would be almost migraine-inducing flickers. It's
really
real.
on the screen, you mean?
Yeah, yeah, just on the laptop screen.
That's really interesting because I've never had that. I don't think where it flickers.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it wasn't doing it the first time. It just started doing it today, and I couldn't tell what was different with it. So
Jan, do you have a background that is loose away from the wall? Because I had that with a where I dropped the screen down, and then the screen actually really had light movement to it. When I would try to take photos, and it would cause that same thing that you're describing, where it looked like it was flickering.
okay, I got a screen. I had started off with a flat white light reducing curtain, but despite my best efforts, I couldn't get to all the folds and the wrinkles and have it lay perfectly flat and not move. So I did buy a projector screen to use for my background. And the only problem I have is two of the people I've been photographing are 6'7", and my screen doesn't go quite that tall. So it's, that's the only problem. But today it was flickering even with that screen and with all my window shades down. And so, like I said, it didn't affect the pictures. The pictures were fine.
So. Yeah, I find the white drywall or the pop-up screen, I find I get the least interference with. For trade shows, I've taken the curtain and you get that undulation and we just kind of work accordingly. And once you get comfortable. So Thor, we have Astrid here and Jan. And so while we were waiting for everybody to come on, we were just asking sort of status of how everybody's made out this week with their Biofield beer.
Great. Well, I'm sure they've been doing well. I mean, I got really excited when I was riding back up here about anyway, I'm going to wait for everyone because I need to wait. But I'm glad to see you, Astrid. Hi there. How are you?
I'm doing wonderful. Thank you.
Hi, Jan. You've got really awesome lighting there, Jan. You look like you do Skypes professionally. Here's me with all the light back there, shadow and everything. And you just glow.
The room I have the Biofield viewer set in has windows on two sides of the room, and it's very, very bright. So
well, we're looking forward to collaborating with you and your team. I was very impressed by your illustrious list of co-collaborators.
I have some fun people that are really interested in getting some visualization done on their research projects. And
well, I mean, you're really going to put us to the test because we say our training is unlimited and free. And so for people who have the system, so when, there's 20 people to train on a team, we just get stuck in. That's all part of it. That's all part of it. Try and keep, it's nice if they're not staggered, so we have to start again. But essentially, we'll send them these videos to start with.
Yeah, I think that will be more than adequate, actually. I truly do. So.
We did also get a mail from one of your other colleagues who sent a set of images, which hopefully we're going to have a look at. So I'm pretty excited that people have gotten stuck in. But, some of you have bought this technology, 5 weeks ago and some 5 days ago. So there is a tiny bit of kind of wiggle lag, which will happen until everyone's got what they need. But I'm sure that seeing Tania's pictures last week, Jan, was quite an inspiration.
It was incredibly inspirational and so helpful. And my pictures just are tenfold better this week than they were the week before because of all of her helpful hints. They really were. It was
well,
a major game changer for me.
I think that's a good thing about having, you know, co-lecturers who have done the training a bit more recently, and they get to share all those insights that everyone else just horribly assumes. And and it's nice to hear it out loud. And Tanya's really good at that. So I'm glad she's hosting us. Well, I mean, we can't assume anyone else is going to join us. I mean, the whole point is that we cut this kind of live. At least there's 4 of us here. And others either watch it in their time zone as and when they can, or hopefully you know, they can join us in the short distance. But you know, we're a good few minutes in now, so I'm happy to at least start a little bit, especially as Astrid wasn't here last week, and just to kind of give a little bit of an overview of what we're actually doing here, and even stepping back a little bit, the community that you guys are part of, because you know, John and I have been doing this a jolly long time. And through the various iterations of Biofield imaging, I think we've probably trained up to 4,000 professionals in its use. And that's got a lot to do with where it is. You know, we've had all kinds of wonderful things, you know, like Sri Ravi Shankar and I both donated a set of equipment to a big hospital in Delhi called Gangaram Hospital. And there was a fabulous lady there running it called Nalini Kaul. And this was one of the first attempts in India to create integrative healthcare. Gangaram Hospital was the place all the prime ministers and senior politicians were going because it's state-of-the-art modern hospital. But they had this sort of wing, which they were kind of creating for, as I said, integrative screening, preventative screening. And they really went to town. They made all these little white cotton boob tubes with Velcro at the back. And in India, people wear underwear, which is a similar strap with a kind of thong down the bottom, and they kind of, you know, that's very normal for them. So they had this whole laundry system of different sized, tiny little, basically bikinis, because they wanted to get maximum, you know, they understood the technology. And, you know, if you can see color sets that are asymmetrical on a female's chest, that is significant. And if she's wearing a paisley fluoro bra, you know, we don't get to speak to her about that, and so opportunities are missed. So yeah, I think that's certainly been part of our journey, and just 30 years has given us so many opportunities and kind of entanglements. You know, that's a big hospital, Gangaram. There's 10 staff working there, pumping through lots of people, dropping them into research projects. But, you know, on the other side, you've got places like the Monroe Institute, which is becoming much more famous for its sort of parapsychology research here in America, and especially with the binaural beats and, you know, the whole Monroe effect, if you like. Hi. Well done. Thanks for joining us. And they actually bought 2 Biofield viewers because they wanted to kind of do dual action research, filming 2 different labs and seeing entities moving around and doing all kinds of crazy stuff. So, you know, I feel that, you know, if we train everyone to a basic kind of standard, they can then go off and do whatever research that they want. And it's also kind of country relevant as well. If you go to Bali, almost every single person is possessed, and you can see all these entities flying around. Whereas you might be in a kind of the buckle of the Bible Belt and not see too many, you know, because what are they called? I always forget that word. When a priest is specially trained to remove. Pardon? Exorcists, right?
Exorcism. Yeah.
So in some places, the exorcists are quite busy, so we don't see so many entities. But yeah, I mean, that's really where we're at. And of course, if you go online on YouTube, you can find people like, and if you've got a pencil, and you haven't heard these names, Dr. Elia Kostova, Delia Kostova. Usually you might not come across her videos, but she's probably done 30 YouTubes, which I consider fabulous training material for you guys, because she's just done it like you would. Like, what happens when I take an MRI video or a PET scan video, even a CT video, and run it through the Biofield viewer? I mean, that's what she's a doctor, that's what she thinks. And so suddenly our whole repertoire expands, because we learn from her investigations that not only can you run any medical imaging through Biofield Viewer, but you get more detail, because CT scans, bless them, have hundreds of thousands of colors. Biofield Viewer has millions and millions. And so we can look at, say, a CT of a tumor, and in, say, the 3D biofield, we will see the malignancy within the tumor. So if someone's doing kind of high grade targeted healing, you know, where to send your message is very important. And so there are all these different things going on. For example, John, when we developed and made the 3D available, he went on a huge journey with dermatologists, because a lot of people were like, wow, we're seeing spikes on moles that are abnormal. And where all the other moles on this fellow's back are all kind of giving us these white spikes yay long, there are these two moles which he's a bit worried about. And certainly now that we've seen these giant, great big spikes coming off them, that we're concerned for him too, because they're anomalous, and they're kind of showing the kind of oncological pattern that, you know, treating things hopefully early, you know, gives us much more recovery and such like. Anyway, if you've not met John before, he's in the Magic Square below. I mean, I appreciate you guys all might have different setups, but this is John Catchpole. Very important person to know, and I'm going to ask him to put his most fabulous contact details in the chat box for some of you who may not be in direct contact with him, because if there's a software glitch, or he's done an upgrade, or you just generally want to know a little bit more about our platform that we call Light, he's your man. And especially if you're at a trade show and you switch the machine on and it doesn't work, if you are already friends with John, you know his bedtimes and what time zone you're in, and the chances are he'll be able to do something, you know, send you a version of the software that'll work, you know, in that room, whatever it is, just on that computer. So he's definitely our man. And you know, we're doing all kinds of different upgrades, especially now this feature of working at a distance has become so prevalent. I mean, I did a survey for healers when I was with ICEAM. And even back then, most Americans were telling me 70% of their clients were at a distance. So having a technology which can scan people in person in your clinic for the important first baseline images and intake and hi, how there are you, and just kind of getting a proper set of images, they can then do follow-ups, the sort of weekly, daily, hourly, however their nerves or, you know, sensibilities desire, they can set up a similar space. Because what we're saying is that if you Well, most countries that I know have digital passport photos now. So you don't go to the little booth in the railway station and draw the curtain and wind the seat up and take your strip of pictures. You actually have to get your mate to have you stand against a white wall and make sure everything's right, no shadow. Bing, that's your digital passport photo. That's what they want. They want that extra information. It helps them identify you. So, in the same way, we're recommending that procedure. And so, I know, Tanya, maybe you could very kindly share your 3-minute video for Biofield Viewer practitioners who are using Soul Mirror or using Biofield Viewer Pro, as it were, to collaborate with their own clients. So if that video you made, I thought was brilliant, and
Yeah, I
everyone
can
may
put that in
want
the
to make,
chat.
yeah, everyone may want to make their own version, but it saves a lot of time because, as you all know, time is very precious, and if you get this biofield imaging process down, it can be 3 minutes. You just turn, as Tanya said last week, toggle between the chakra viewer and the biofield viewer. What that means is that the person standing looking at you, you take their biofield viewer picture, then you hit the chakra button and you instantly take the chakra viewer picture before they turn. Otherwise, you've got people spinning and spinning. So you take all of the pictures that you need in a row. And then when you've got your set of images, you can do a much easier comparison because you can see them in your thumbnail files that this biofield viewer and this chakra viewer look different from each other. And as you know, we've talked about that last week, that can be significant. If I see biofield viewer images affected symmetrically, I know this is a physical thing that they've just gone and banged themselves or hurt themselves, or it's physical. Whereas if I see it in the emotional template, what we call chakra viewer, and we don't see it in the physical, we know that's an opportunity for preventative care because this thing hasn't even crystallized yet. It's still just an emotional issue, and it's profoundly just in the chakra viewer image and not in the biofield viewer image. So this timelining is really brilliant because anyway, biofield viewer is seeing stuff long before normal scans would see it. And because of the nature of biofield viewer, we're also seeing those accumulation issues where someone injured something, it perhaps wasn't properly treated, and so they've got an issue with it, and then it kind of something else happens, and so you've got this kind of layers of things. And some really clever body workers can work that stuff out. Wow, this guy's damaged his shoulder, and then he's upset his clavicle, and then he's gone and bust his rib, and so now all these different things are all pulling in different ways. And as I said, I don't know, maybe it's definitely worth repeating. The best thing you can go and buy yourself tomorrow is a plastic ruler, one of those 12-inch, totally transparent rulers with just a little bit of maybe the centimeters or inches on it so that you can slide it down your computer screen when you're showing your client. You say, look, your left shoulder is 5 millimeters higher than your right shoulder. And we wouldn't have even noticed it. But because that area is also all red and all these other signs are showing up, it's like the traffic cops working out what happened in an accident. They've got the rubber streaks on the road, they've got the tree, they've got all the evidence there. And we see that all in the field. And of course, we also see the timeline because old injuries are like old dry paints, and fresh injuries are like fresh wet paints. So you get the muddy browns and the murky grays and the sort of dark, um, just colors that aren't bright, that aren't kind of shining. That's where we see the kind of old injuries. And I mean, I guess we could then say that perhaps hydration could be a way of addressing, these old injuries. And I mean, have a look at scars, have a look at some old scars, on your body and see what kind of, see how they have such a profound effect in your energy body. I know that a lot of people in our world are working with scars because of the impact on meridian and energy flows. And it's actually quite nice to be able to see it and see what you're doing. So now that we're pretty much all here, why don't we see those fabulous pictures that Dolly sent us, Tanya? Don't worry. The thing is, you've got really good buddy in Tanya, because she literally has just finished all of her training completely. So she's totally fresh. And so her showing her way of doing things and sharing with you just, I think, made all your pictures so much better. Now, I mean, these pictures are great, and I'm going to tell you why they're great. They're great because the person is taking up about a third of the space, and that's what I like. I mean, in the sense that you could have another person here and another person here. They'd probably both be upside down to fit, but about a third of the space. So that means we're close enough to see details in the images. Now, obviously, he's wearing a t-shirt. That's the best possible thing he could be wearing if he was wearing something, because clearly you can see through it from an energetic perspective. We can see the pooling on the back, especially in the bottom left image. Now, that may be shadow caused by the t-shirt, but it's still visible. And so it's something we can talk about. What I say is that the better a set of images are, the person is really close to the wall, there's no shadow, they're well lit, they're revealing as much of their body surface as they're comfortable with, then we can make uncannily, spookily accurate and precise assessments, which really blows them away. It really, really blows people away. But as images become a little bit more, you're not so sure, then accept that, and just, without being so committed, it's okay just to ask. Like, for example, if I was 100% sure about something.
Did we get a freeze?
Starlink connection will come back, I
Yes.
think.
He'll come back in a minute.
Yeah.
Okay. But Dolly, these are your first sets of images, correct?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, they're really good.
Okay, this yeah, one is my one of the people, oh, my friend actually, he's was taking hypnosis therapy, and that was before. Did you get to receive the others where he doesn't have a t-shirt?
It's whatever's in this PDF. Let me just flip through here.
Because I sent you a
Yes.
a PowerPoint. Okay,
Yes, this
I
is a PowerPoint here.
okay,
Did we get, oh, I think Thor's got a log. Yeah, so here when we get into the chakras, here he has his shirt off.
okay,
Yeah, so we have, and then the 3Ds. This is your PowerPoint here.
okay, good. Okay, I just want to make sure you got everything. Yeah, so he was my first using the Biofield, because I'm also training for the hypnosis therapy, and I want to combine, because I do several things, but I wanted to combine before and after the hypnosis to see if there's any change.
Yeah, I think it's brilliant because we can actually, well, when we get into, we can kind of skip ahead. We can move back and forth with some of these with Thor. Because when you look at the before imaging here, like in the chakras, and then we move to the after imaging, we can absolutely see a shift in energy. So this is probably confusing and I'm moving too fast, so we'll go slow.
Okay.
So let's take a look at these images to start until we get Thor pick in the window here. So with the ring light, I'm just going to provide some feedback here. So on the side of his face here, my guess is is that darker coloring would be the shadow from the ring. I've played around with the ring light, so I'm kind of familiar with the shadows that they leave. So my guess is on this side of the face, that would be shadow, which we would call artifact.
Yes,
And then
I guess so, yes.
yeah. And what I would also call, so there's venting and leaking of energy and some sort of shielding of energy. And sometimes around here we can see that. But my guess is, so seeing from some of the other images, is you were maybe had him just a little, I'd back him up a little further to the wall. And that would minimize some of that energy. And the reason I bring that up is I can see here in the next image, see his toes. Next time when we do that, we want to have our, and I find that you have to course correct them on almost every image, is have them shimmy as far back as possible to that wall or that screen. And that will help sort of minimize that outside line. If you're as far back and the line is around, then we are looking at an energetic issue of them leaking or venting maybe some energy. John, did you want to add anything on to that as well?
No, I'm not as experienced as Thornton, so I'll wait for Thornton. Yeah.
All right. And sorry,
May
go
I
ahead,
ask,
Dolly.
may I ask you something? So what you're telling me is that he should, you know, the person should be closer to the wall?
Yes, you want them as close to the wall as possible, almost
Possible,
touching.
okay.
And we
Another,
really want to minimize that shadow line behind, because that can actually distort the imaging.
Mm.
okay,
That's the reason you get a shadow, because there's distance to the wall. Yeah.
got it, okay. So,
And
uh-huh,
no, go ahead.
yes. So beside having, because I just all bought a 6500 whatever LED light. It's supposed to be daylight, but it's just one piece. But I was using it today, but it creates so much shadow. And I was thinking if I should have two additional ones on the side to,
The problem is
because
that'll create
So-
two more shadows. That's the problem. So I think one light is better.
but I was using it and it created so much shadow. I was going to show some of the pictures today and I didn't send
So
them to you
how
because
far away is it from the wall, Dolly?
one of the pictures I was completely to the wall.
yeah.
You know, just, and I
So to
took
the
this,
light. So
and
from
then
the
still that
wall to
dark,
the
it
light.
was like a shadow at the back. Yeah.
Is the camera coming from the
So
same direction as the light? Because if the camera is different to the light, you'll get a shadow. The more different the camera angle is to the light, the more shadow you'll get.
So my light was, my camera was here and my light was down here. My
Okay.
camera was upper and the
That's
light,
pretty close. Yeah. Yeah.
and it created a lot
So
of shadow.
try flipping it. Try putting your light above, your camera below.
Okay, I'll try that tomorrow.
If you
Okay,
could do that. So I hook my camera onto my light post is what I do. And I
Okay.
picked up on Amazon, there was it's like a bike mount
Yes.
phone holder or camera holder. And I know that John and Thor used to do custom ones, but they actually sell ones on Amazon, or at least I got one here in Canada that was able to work with my computer or with my computer camera. And that way I hook it on to the same tripod as my light, but just underneath it.
okay.
And that will help. And I keep it 72 inches, so about 6 feet from the
From the wall.
backdrop and
Okay.
the light back. And then sometimes, like if I have someone who's tall, I end up having to shimmy it back a little bit. If I have
Got it.
someone who's shorter, or if I'm doing an animal, perhaps I'll move it up a bit. And I just kind of play. And then that's where the camera calibration app that we sent out really comes in handy, because that allows you to calibrate and adjust your exposure levels according to the size of your subject and your lighting conditions. That'll
Okay.
kind of help find it. So really, like, it's a matter of playing with it to find the sweet spots. And then you know, if you move your studio, you'll find that you'll be able to adjust it. So feel free to play around with that, because I find that
Okay.
I don't follow one set of rules. I just understand where I'm supposed to be, and then I play with it in each setting that I'm in to achieve that baseline.
Okay, great. Thank you.
You're welcome. Let's keep going through some of your imaging here. these are all the bio imagings, and then we've got the chakra here. So I love how you did the before imaging so that they can see, and you did a really great job with all of your images. Now, in terms of interpreting some of these, what I would start with is I start with that hot pink and that red coloring. And that shows me where the slowest moving congested energy is. So here, my guess is that he's a highly intuitive man.
Yes, he
And
is.
yeah, so we can see that here. Now we do see some congestion. Did he talk about having any headaches or sinus pain or pressure?
I didn't, because I was focusing more on the hypnosis. So I didn't ask him about, and we didn't have time to take a look at the pictures and discuss them. I just took the pictures for the purpose of this class. And I told him, I'm going to send the pictures and then I'm going to analyze it and then I'll discuss it with you. But now that we're discussing this, now I'm going to go back to him. I'm going to ask him how was he feeling that day? If he had sinuses or whatever. What else you would say that you see here? Because I also see like a red pooling here and on his forehead.
Yeah, I mean, it's
Oh.
that particular color pink, isn't it? I
Mhm.
call it hot pink,
Yeah.
or fuchsia. Is it fuchsia?
It's like a fuchsia.
Yeah, I mean it, and then red is actually quite different. Red is like, wow, what's going on there? Pink is
Mhm.
like the guy could have a headache just now, or a migraine just now, or a toothache that's quite fresh. But when it's red, and we're not seeing any red, we're seeing pink, orange, and whatever that color is around his head. What would you call that color, ladies?
That's like a hot pink. It's not a magenta, almost a magenta.
But it's faster than pink.
Yeah.
It's coming up into the kind of indigo violet-y colors. Well, it's not really, but the color either side of his head. Tanya, can you use your thing? Yeah, no, further away. No, outside his feet. Yeah, I'm talking about that color.
That's
Oh,
a
What?
purple for sure.
that's a
Little
purple.
lavender.
Okay, but is it lilac?
Yeah, I goes. We want to say lilac, yeah.
Because
Yeah.
purple to me gets darker because you need to be conscious that all these colors he's displaying are fresh colors, like I was speaking about. These are not old, dry colors, and the purples can start looking like dried blood. That there you'll all see when someone's got like throat cancer, and it's just like, wow, and this thing is there with black and purples and browns, and so. Is this guy some kind of does he do qigong or something?
Well, he is a massage therapist. He does a lot of body work. That's his profession.
Yeah.
And he's also very intuitive. He also participates from the classes that I'm giving, and he also participates from the workshops, the Monroe workshops that I also provide. So he's very intuitive. He's a very mellow person, and I think that it shows on the light
Does he
around
like
him.
sweet tea?
I don't know. I'm gonna ask him.
Because what you see when you have somebody like this who really is quite fabulous and very symmetrical, especially from the front, he's very symmetrical and bright. But he's got the pink on his face and in his sinus, in his lymphatics. That implies to me that he's got a couple of broken teeth, like his oral
Oh,
hygiene is not up to
okay.
speed. So, these are things where someone's really up, they're just fabulous. They're solid, they're balanced, but they just allow certain things to creep in under the carpet. And so the best thing you can do, all of you, is when you have your intake, actually get a set of chops, teeth, top and bottom, you know, like I can send you our version because it's really important. Holistic diagnostics, teeth is everything because each tooth is linked to a meridian. So every tooth that's got a filling or an amalgam or you know, is missing, that all means so much because the percussion of our teeth when we're talking and eating sends that sort of harmonic down the meridians and sort of massages the organs. So if you're missing or any teeth or you've got metal or anything, that's going to mess up your meridian system. And for those of you who are really up to speed on meridians, you can actually track from a red hot tooth the meridian all the way down to the other end. Now, again, we've only really got praise for this fellow because there's a real sense of this kind of, I mean, he's like working with rainbows almost. He's got such beautiful bright colors around him, but at the same time, you know, there is this, you know, stoic sense of something going on that perhaps he's not quite talking so much about. You know, he
It could
probably
be.
needs he probably needs a massage. You know, I feel like he just has done so much work and taken so much kind of on. And the other thing is his lower neck is not symmetrical at the back here. And even it doesn't follow around. You know, there's blue on one side of his throat and red on the other. And again, that area is I would guess that he's, you know, he's got something, you know, he's just got a little something in there, a little kind of niggle, not just this potential dental issue, because right down in the lower neck there, and he probably deals with it. You know, you may find that he, you know, he's had an old leg injury, and so his shoes are wearing down one side more than the other, and so he's a little bit, even though he's a massage, you know, fabulous fellow and he does his time. Um, yeah, I mean, those feet, yeah, those feet, the top left picture to me is that kind of sign of um, you know, there's a little bit of congestion in there. And even when we look at his hands, even though we're filming his feet, that I mean, from an emotional perspective, these are all I know we're looking at Biofield pictures, so let's look at the lower ones. When we see red in the hands like that, now you'll notice there's more red in the Biofield image of his arms than there is in the chakra viewer image because his arms are literally kind of overworked. But they've also got this pink down there in his knuckles, and that will be kind of an arthritic tendency. That's a sort of onset of arthritis. And the reason why this fellow has got that onset of that arthritic tendency where his knuckles are just starting to, you know, get a little bit painful is because he's not able to communicate properly. And so that's frustrating over decades. And and so that builds up his arms. If he was an Italian, I would say his arms are his lips. You know, we really do speak with our hands, and they both connect in up at the same chakra, the throat chakra, our lips, the flower, and our arms are the sort of two leaves that go out either side, but they're all connected with this throat chakra. So anything that we see in the arms, in a chakra viewer image, these bottom pictures is always to do with the sort of dysfunctionality of the throat chakra. And so, Dolly, this is that super sweet, lovely fellow who's probably worried about something, and you know, he can't tell you because he wants to appear to be reliable, young, employable. He needs you to be that for him. But I would encourage you to step forward and to say, actually, I'm really, you know, we had a lovely chat about your pictures, and Dr. Streeter said, what a fabulous healer. Lovely to see all these fresh, vibrant colors. But there are these kind of war wounds that, you know, why not, let's bring them out in the open and get you to be like top performing, match fit, because there is that sense of frustration. And the fact that both his ankles and his hands, they sort of almost look oversized because that energy is so kind of congested around his hand and his feet. And why is it so? Well, because he's dealing with really heavy energy every time he does a massage. I mean, I've seen people, I saw my own colleagues' hands the other day and they were bright yellow. That's when people are surgeons, you know, when their intellect is in their hands. I've seen itinerant healers, which means just guys who just heal hundreds of people, one after the other, and wander around the country, not kind of even eating properly. And they have hands like blue boxing gloves, kind of just blue. So it's these kind of anomalies that you see after, you know, a period of time that kind of help you set your sights. Now, here we've got his shirt off, so we're able to see a lot more detail. And again, I mean, I'd still be absolutely happy and comfortable to take a massage from this fellow, but you know, he's feeling it. And probably when he gets home, he puts his, what if he, I would say to him, Dolly, when you go home, here's a bag of Epsom salts, put them in a bucket of, get a bucket of warm water, put some sprinkle, and then you have half an hour of being looked after by your wife and your daughter, and let them come bring you a glass of water, and you just sit there with your feet in the bucket, because then he can just unload all of that kind of stuff he's taken on. Some healers are super clairvoyant and they can see all this stuff. And so they have really smart little protocols, like little noises that they make. And
He is clairvoyant.
Pardon?
He is clairvoyant.
Right. No, I don't doubt that. I don't doubt that. But he's so humble. He's like one of these guys where his friends need to help do the little housekeeping. He's so humble and he's so brilliant. He just, yeah, he's using up all his energy on everybody else, and just he needs, yeah, I mean, it's that kind of healers. You've running a healing center there, so you know, one day a month, you know, you guys all swap services and you give him a massage. And I can't tell you how good he'll feel if Dolly gives him a massage. It's, there's so much in the psychology of this man's energy as there is in, you know, his sense of place and status and humility. And but yeah, let's look at his pictures. I mean, does he spend a lot of time, I mean, tell me about his eyesight. Does he wear glasses?
He does. He does
Right.
wear eye. Yeah.
And you, I think all of us can see that when you look at his eyes, you can't really see them very clearly. I mean, maybe I need to get my bloody
And
glasses
he
changed.
always is, you know, I don't know if it's the way his eyes are, but he's always like this, even though he wears glasses.
Yeah.
Like squinting is the word, you know,
Yeah,
the
yeah, yeah,
eyes.
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, because there's a whole lot going on actually with our Juan here. I mean, um he's definitely kind of straining his eyes in that sense. And the fact that he's having to see better. I mean, again, you know, he may be wearing an old pair of glasses and they're actually not right for him, his prescription. That's what it sounds like to me. If he's squinting through his glasses, he's trying to get that extra, you know, he's trying to change the shape of his eyeball to help him focus. So that implies that his glasses are 5 years old and they might need a couple of points on each wing. So these are the kind of things that actually will then relax him, because he's straining to see and observe and what have you. But you know, looking at his back in these pictures, again, it's not that beautiful, symmetrical, t-shirted Juan that we saw in the first sort of set of images. And I don't know, yeah, this is before and after. So are all of these before healing? All of these 4 pictures? And then there's another
Yes.
slide. Can you
No,
just glance?
this is before.
Okay, so can you just dance forward then and see the next slide, which get or the what? I don't know what you. Yeah, baseline, baseline. Okay, that's
Hold on, do you
brilliant.
want to see the after Thor? Here's after.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, look at the symmetry. That's yeah.
Look
I
at the
mean,
before.
wow. Well, the picture on is right. I mean, I don't really know what QHHT therapy is, but it
Yes,
sounds
that's the quantum healing hypnosis therapy. A I took a picture of him, these pictures before the uh hypnosis therapy and then after. We didn't have that much time because it was almost four hours into the process and he had to do other things. I had another appointment. So the only pictures that I could take after the therapy were these four pictures. But I wanted
great.
to take his face. You know,
Right, but it's amazing. I mean, you must be really thrilled because he looks so much more coherent. I mean, it's lovely to see the man as the shaman that he is, with that sort of beautiful, all those different cultural kind of dances in his expression and in his face. And in the
Thor.
picture, yeah,
Sorry, I think it's important for everyone to talk about the difference between the Biofield viewer and the BioPro so that they
right.
understand when they're imaging the
Well, ask
difference
John.
between both.
He invented it. He's down there. You ask him. Come on.
Yes, it's also adjusting to the room conditions on the Pro. So if you have a dark room or a dark light, the Bio will have insufficient color range and it'll look a lot darker. The Bio Pro is designed to adjust with the conditions. So in the old days, we didn't have a strong light like we do now. Now we have quite a unified, strong LED light. In the old days, lights were much less bright and room conditions varied a lot. So we needed the software to adjust for that so that we'd always have, as you can see in the Pro, we'd always have the yellows and a little bit of white generally in every image. So that's what it does. But it's still, you can still see it's still useful now, even with the modern lighting, to standardize the colors.
Yeah, totally. But I mean, just going into, I mean, if you don't mind, I mean that I personally always keep Pro on.
Mm. There are
Fact,
other
Okay.
things it
Yeah,
does
I
as
do too.
well. Pro does other things as well. It keeps the image more stable, so you get a lot less interference. Some
Okay.
lighting conditions on without Pro, you'll have a lot of very, very shaky image because the camera frequency is slightly different to the lighting frequency, but only slightly different, and you get interference. So the Pro will filter that out, and it'll also have a lot less grainy. You can see on the Pro image on the right, it's a lot smoother boundary between colors, a lot less random. It's
yeah,
just more accurate. It's basically more accurate.
yeah,
Yeah, I leave it in default in Pro
Yes,
as
yes,
well and find it that primarily my best imaging comes from there.
yes,
Only once in a while, if I'm playing with a light level or I'm trying to find something, I'll toggle it off. But for the
yes.
most part, Pro is default on mine as
Well,
well.
I will say something that to honor these pictures though, because what we can clearly see is with the Pro, we see things, we notice things, but when we go over and look at the bio, they're super accentuated. So I would encourage Dolly and everyone to keep taking all these pictures because it allows you to go, it's almost like a deeper layer. It's like, oh, what's going on in his throat? And then you look over on the other side and it's go, well, it's both sides. You know, it really is both sides. You know, that sort of extra qualification is not worth missing. But in terms of the client, I mean, you aren't going to believe what a difference this technology makes for your client's dance to health because these pictures help them own the healing they've just had with you. They get to see it. They get to hold on to it. And so when they come back next week, they've not drifted back to, you know, it's not one step forward or two steps forward, one step back. It really is a quantum ironically. It's a genuine quantum step-by-step process, and it triggers their own trust in you, which is really powerful. It triggers their own trust in the healing that you've chosen for them. If images aren't better by brightness and symmetry, then that may give you a clue to turn down the volume on your machine. I mean, your treatment device, or, you know, perhaps not overwhelm them with so many different things. Just hold their feet for a couple of sessions until they're kind of balanced, because this device works both ways. It works to inform the healee that they're having a healing experience, and it helps you fine tune your protocols and your choice of, you know, the stepping stones that you're going to take. And I think the most important thing this technology will give you is the prioritization sense, which means, oh my God, that guy's X is showing up like a clown's red nose. I'm going to treat that first, because the image of their biofield is informing you subconsciously, and you're noticing which is that focal point. And I can assure you, 1,000 times, 10,000 times, we've researched this by the practitioner knowing where the most profound issue is. They've been informed and they've chosen a protocol and they've addressed that issue. And it seems to me a bit like when a plumber unblocks your pipes and the big blockage is dealt with. Well, then what he does is he goes upstairs and he turns all the taps on and lets the flow of water sort of unblock all the small little bits and pieces that are there, because he knows he's dealt with the core issue. And he's not going to be rodding everything else and potentially breaking and cracking your pipes. So that gentle approach that healers seem to kind of leapfrog stages by the gentleness is definitely witnessed here. And that's why we say, you know, welcome to the age of kind of precision guided healing, because and again, we're looking at still images. By all means, you've all got live Biofield viewer on your computers now. So that means you can film a whole session. You don't need to do anything. You don't need to look at the screen. You just do it. You just have a session with someone and film it. My friend's here at the moment cutting down trees. He set up his camera and he'd filmed himself cut down 50, 60 trees. You watch that in 30 seconds. It's absolutely incredible. It really is. And so this sort of sense of being able to look at what's actually happening in the healing journey. And it's quite strange. And I'll share some links with you. You know, someone's working away and you see things changing and you see sort of things popping and symmetry dropping in like kind of magnetic fields. And then suddenly, pop, the whole thing just jumps an octave up. And that is that moment of healing. And you don't know exactly when it's going to happen. It may just be very gradual, but it genuinely seems to me that certain things are happening and then the circumstances are right for the individual to comfortably move up to this sort of higher frequency set. And
Well,
certainly
and Thor,
that's what,
to
yeah.
add to that, when you're videoing your Biofield viewer sessions, so you can look for the phase shift, as what you were just saying, which is fascinating for not only us as practitioners to see, but also our clients love to see that. But I find that it also works in the event, maybe, you know, I've had situations where they're talking and you miss an image, or you know, it wasn't the best image and you want to be able to go back. The nice thing is when you're recording your session, you're able to scrub through and go back to that imaging as
Yeah.
opposed to, because sometimes I've actually had to pull images from the video for my clients because the image we took, maybe they moved or something happened and I didn't get a clear enough image. And I also find for children and animals, it's really nice to have the video going at all times as well, because again, children fidget and move and animals rarely stand still.
The
So
only thing
having that.
But Tanya, the only problem with videos, one second, the only problem with videos is they can be quite big files. So
Yes.
so what you almost want to kind of cut your video and then decide what you're going to do with it. Like, am I going to shrink this? Uh, John, what can you recommend about video compression and such like?
It depends what way I mean, if you're storing it on a hard drive, it shouldn't be much problem these days, but if it depends on the quantity you're doing.
So, for example, do you know that it's a sort of 1 gig an hour? Do we have an idea of, because we're using quite a lot of processing, aren't we? There's a lot of info in that.
Yeah, it depends partly on the computer speed, because actually the faster the computer is, the more frames per second it will store on the video.
Right.
So it will depend on the machine. So you have to just look at your computer and what it's doing.
Yeah,
You
because
can
I mean, the
change,
whole
can
hour-long
convert
session.
formats. You can
Maybe.
convert formats to more
Yeah.
efficient formats.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or
Well, I
make
find too, if I could, sorry.
Go on. No, go on.
I was just say if I add to it, I don't video for a full hour because that's a whole lot of light inside in someone's face. I find it's maybe 15-20 minutes at max. And then after that they can't take the light anyways because it's just too much standing there. But yeah, it's nice to have that. And sorry, Dolly, I know you've had your hand up for a long time. You wanted to
Yeah,
say something.
let's go with that.
A question, actually two questions regarding the video. Okay, because I also give Reiki. So let's say that I just want to take a video of when I'm working in the head area. So I would put the camera and then the table and then me, and then I would be videotaping the person, or where should I place the camera when I'm video,
I think what I would do is for the first few cases, I would keep my camera in its position and not do what we're suggesting until
Okay.
you're comfortable. You see, there's a sweet spot. Like every professional photographer takes amazing pictures, and you're like, my God, how did they do that? And it's because they've learned that process, and you are learning that process. And so you'll take a picture of and you go, dang, I haven't quite got this right. I've left another light on and the door's open. And you just realize it's actually quite important to get the light in the right position with the person and the white background. There aren't very many requirements, but it's important to get them right because everything focuses in. This technology was designed by John in this version to take pictures of people who are that far away. And so, we've made it like that. And so if you get the sweet spot, and of course, what I'm suggesting is that once you've got the sweet spot when people are standing up and your camera's on the thing, then you can also go, well, I can just set the sweet spot up over here because I know what I'm doing now. I just need to make sure it's well lit and but I mean, essentially, you can approach your client when they are standing in the Biofield imaging space and working either side of them because you're thinking, crikey, there's no point blocking the camera with my body, but you don't want to sort of, make it uncomfortable for yourself to do your work. And then certainly, I mean, you make a good 3-minute video, that's $1 million worth of advertising if you've got a good PR agent, I can assure you.
Good.
If you
So
can
I have a second
show,
question. Yeah,
yeah,
thank you so much.
not
I
at
have
all.
a second question. I'm providing a workshop in a week and a half, and I'm going to have 10 people participating. It's a sound healing workshop with some Monroe Sound Science. And I want to use the Biofield before and after the workshop, but I was thinking, should I just take a photo of their heads like from here up only and forget about the body and
Well,
just work? Because there are
I'll
10
tell you, I'll
people.
tell you, I'll tell you. The best thing to do is set the biofield viewer up at the back of the room. So everybody is looking at you this way, and you've got it set up at the back of the room. And then what you do is you get into your cupboard and you find some of your old advertising pull-ups or something like that, or a privacy screen, and you just make a little cubicle at the back of the room. And what you actually do is you teach everyone how to take their own pictures, and you quickly make it a part of your show. And so anyone can just tap on a friend's shoulder and say, can you take my picture? So it becomes a really kind of immersive experience. You can just take each person's pictures, but I would do it because your time is so important. Whilst you're introducing your workshop, just say someone is going to come and tap you on the shoulder. You're going to walk to the back of the room and you're going to have your picture taken. And I'm going to ask you also to take out your phone and take a picture of the screen of every picture that we take on our computer, because then they've also immediately got it in front of them. And then when everybody's pictures are taken, the person at the back of the room who's operating your computer could maybe send you a thumb drive up with everybody's pictures, and you could say, who is happy for me to address their images or put their images on the computer? And so everyone, who was, and then so you could put the thumb drive in the computer at the top of this where you are, and you can look at one person's pictures, but everyone else can look at their own pictures on their phone. So you don't have to go through everybody's stuff. You can encourage people to interpret their own images. And so this is now a very important moment we're at, which is, what do I use to interpret images? Okay, so I'm a scientist. I've been studying biofields. I was never studying what it actually meant, believe it or not. That came later. That came when I wanted to know what it meant. I was just fascinated in the structure and the shine and the light and all these basic fundamental aspects of the biofield. So at some point, maybe 10 years into studying biofields, we were then encouraged to look at healing and say, crikey, meditation, all of these different techniques influence the biofield. They all interact with the biofield. And so I encourage you all to search on Google for a map of emotions, or the emotional chart, or even a little bit more information, kinesiology emotion chart. Just use smart thinking. And what will happen is you'll get 30 pictures up on your screen and you'll be like, wow, like the biofield tuning chart is pretty good. I like that one. Eileen McCusick's chart, because she's doing exactly the same sort of work that we are, but they're all psychics and able to cross-reference with asking their patients, do you feel this emotion that I'm sensing? It's a really interesting process. Now, we don't have our own emotional chart for our institute because we've developed a ruler and we want people to use it to measure all kinds of different things. And we certainly don't want to be chased by federal food and drug agencies for making devices that have claims. So that's not what we're about. You guys are professionals. We're supporting you with technology. This is as simple as that. And it's a lens. It's a digital lens. An MRI is a whole great big ground up machine that's designed to do a specific job. Ours is just clairvoyance. You can't pigeonhole us as an X-ray machine or a functional MRI. That's not how we get categorized. But you can learn from our peers all of the hundreds of different modalities. And the thing that's really uncanny is that they're almost identical. You know, the popular charts. I mean, you'll find some wacky stuff that some, you know, guys just created, but the big modalities that have got decades of reliability, you know, we're seeing the same story. So you could take a transparent, you know, overhead projector picture of one of these charts and put it over the body of Juan and go, crikey, this whole chest area is sadness. And he's all red here. And you say, Juan, what are you sad about? So that's an important thing that I'm going to ask you to do. I have done all this obviously myself, and I have selected a lot of these charts, and I will share them with you because in my SlideShare portfolio of slideshows, there is one which says interpreting biofield viewer images, and some of those selected emotion charts are in there. So slideshare.net has been owned by probably 10 different corporations since I first started uploading my PowerPoints to it. And it's been really annoying when certain people owned it and they had loads of ads. But right now, I think it's owned by Scribed. And, you know, you can not be too annoyed by going through some of the slides. But the good thing is you can obviously make them big and just do a screenshot, and then you've got this kind of saddlebag of goodies that soon you're going to know, but for the next few weeks they may be in there as a sort of satchel. I mean, some of my students print charts out and put them, you know, they have laminated things under their computer, they just slide them out and go. And if you pressed me, which one would I run with? I would say Eileen McCusick's Biofield tuning charts, front and back, are the ones that I like, because I watched that woman develop that whole thing in front of my very eyes. And my partner at the time was working with her. So it was like we did it ourselves, but it was a kind of independent process. Now, time-wise, where are we? I
Half
never
hour.
want to go longer than an
25,
hour.
27,
We've got, I
36.
think I'm going to go along for another half an hour. Well, we're going for another half an hour, just so you know. Now, this is being recorded and it will be sent to you. So if any of you have to duck out at any time because you got to get somewhere, you may always do that and just catch up that last section, what have you. Now, Dolly, those pictures were absolutely brilliant. I hope you're encouraged that I'm so impressed by your pictures.
You. Thank you. I was like
Yeah.
trying to, you know, and it was just a ring light, you know.
Yeah, yeah. Well, we work with what we've got, and it gets better. But the only slight thing was he was casting a few shadows because he wasn't as close back to the wall as he could have been. And you'll notice that helps, you know, like when we stand. I mean, I actually say put your cheeks on the wall, bum cheeks on the wall. That's what I say. And maybe even your shoulder blades, you know, because then they're actually comfortable. And then you can put the back of the head, because a lot of people are tipping their heads forward. And so we can't really see the throat chakra. So if they're that kind of person who's a bit kind of hunched over, ask them to, I mean, if it is a wall, obviously if it's just a piece of fabric, we can't do this. But if it's a genuine wall and they're not covered in mud, then, you know, I think it's quite sensible for them to be really like pressed against the wall. That's my experience. Now, I did put my, I think next week I'm going to start showing my slideshows and my training slideshows and some of the sort of anomalous things that we're going to see. But I didn't really want to get too kind of dived into that today, just because, you know, I think some of us weren't here last week, and it is almost like a first session for some of us. But, you know, I'm really hoping that by next week, you guys have all at least got a set of images. So Astrid, for example, I still have a little bit of business to do with you. So if you could kindly send me some information that I could follow up with that, that would be great.
Sounds great.
Have you now got a light and a camera and everything that you need?
I have everything I need. I've been taking images, playing around with family members. Thankfully, I have a large family, so that's been really fun.
Well, are you up for sharing some of your pictures?
Yeah, do you want me to quickly email some, or how would you like
Well,
me to?
no, I think we're going to give you the opportunity to share your screen. I think that's the most sensible thing. If Tanya,
I would love to see that.
yeah,
Okay.
and then, you know, as we're going to be watching pictures, we can yeah.
Absolutely. Let me try to find them.
And of course, I am convinced everybody instinctively can interpret biofield viewer images. Instinctively, you've got it all in there. Sometimes you're not present enough to tune into that aspect of yourself. So you just sit in front of an image going, what the hell am I looking at? So I think presence is as important as when you're healing as when you're kind of interpreting someone's pictures and really kind of being there for them with the pictures. I don't think the images heal by any stretch of the imagination, but I do think they give people, you know, wonderful bookends to your healing. Wow. Well, I knew I was going to say wow, and I am. That's fabulous.
This is a 18-year-old.
Right. So in terms of the focal point, what catches your eye, Astrid, in that image?
The beautiful, bright colors in the biofield, the outer biofield.
I would agree, totally. When we say focal point, what we're implying is something that is catching our eye from that beautiful, perfect, symmetrical being. And what the first thing that catches our eye is the color change on her tank top, and probably that is anomalous. It's nothing. It's artifact. It's just the way the light is shining on one side, and you know, we've seen it often. So we're discounting that thing. That's not real. It's like a tattoo. It's just not real. But we have to accept the clothes and the lighting. So then the next thing we notice, in my mind, is this extraordinary relationship between the throat chakra and the space around it. And Astrid, I think you're going to be fascinated to hear. And this is not something I'm making up right now. And if this is your daughter, she might be delighted to hear me say this. Okay? And so what this is a beautiful person speaking their truth, but she doesn't feel always heard.
Mhm.
So this is a very important thing that Biofield gives us is this subtle raison d'etre for these issues that can become, you know, shyness, growing their hair funny that goes down over their eyes and gives them acne and just suddenly changes the whole, you know, persona. And so it's a critical time for you, Astrid. This is your 18-year-old daughter, yeah?
She's not my daughter. She's a best friend of one of my daughters since second grade, so she feels like a daughter, but
Okay, well then
she's not
even
my
more reason for you to say, Dr. Streeter, in my training, had a look at your pictures and he said you've got one of the brightest, clearest, most outstanding throat chakras he's ever seen. Are you a singer? Are you going to be a singer? Wow, amazing. That's just incredible. Just the size, the shape, the brightness of it. It's just like it's like an athlete's throat chakra.
Mhm.
But then the pink around it is this like, come on, dad, come on, mum. When I'm sitting down, I actually want you to listen to what I'm saying. I'm an adult. I have feelings, and you're trampling over my very delicate um, snowdrops when you ignore me or when you look at your phone or when you interrupt me when I'm speaking. If this girl was standing in front of me now, what I would say to her is you need to learn the back of the head trick. And she's like, what? And I said, yeah, the back of the head trick. When someone interrupts you when you're speaking, do this and walk the other direction. You know, just snap their codependency with a disequilibrium and just make them realize that it's affecting you. And if they don't get it any other way, then show them the back of your head, because they'll bloody get it quickly. They really will. They'll be like, and they will also realize, oh my God, I interrupted her again. I was really not, I didn't want to do that. So there's an element of that in that area around the throat chakra. It's not sadness in our book. It's high up in the throat there. Sadness we would see below that. There is a little bit of pink there. And this thing may be making her a bit sad. You know, let's face it, that's a kind of a thing. Her eyes, a little strange to me. They look, I mean, it almost is like a painting of a doll, in the sense that's just what I'm saying, just literally seeing, in the sense that maybe she's getting a bit too much screen time, or is using too many strange chemicals to paint her eyes. You know, I'm not suggesting she's got those eye colors on now, but it's a bit much. It's just something's not quite right. And her right eye has got a sort of pink coming into the center. And so again, it's like, well, what's going on? And if she fesses up to too much phone time, we just say it's showing. I mean,
She has an eye disease, actually.
Okay.
Yeah,
Well,
so her eyes, I don't know what the proper medical term is, but her eyes, they vibrate nonstop.
yes. Oh,
Mhm.
crikey. So she's
But
made.
she is what I call phoneaholic. She's on her phone all the time too. So I'm sure it's the combination of both.
I think that is exactly what it is. Now, so notice we've also very brilliantly got her t-shirt pulled up. And I recommend this always. You know, if people want to wear a shirt, that's absolutely fine. But I say, you know, obviously we don't want boxer shorts halfway around their waist, excuse me. But I just say pull it up. You know, you don't want us to see so much. Well, let's see as much as we are allowed to see. You know, that's it, you know. And so what we're seeing there is two kind of hot pink pools, and that is mum and dad.
Can you
Very,
elaborate?
that's mum and dad, and she is shielding. We call this, Astrid, you weren't here last week, but very importantly, we do not call blocked energy blocked. We just don't do it. Oh,
Right.
you did hear the video. We call it
Yes, I did.
shielding, because we're honoring the person who's wearing the Joseph's Technicolor Dreamcoat. We're honoring them. And so we're not projecting on them what we think we know about them. We're observing what we see, and then we get to intervene with our healing. But those two lobes of pink, because that's the belly button, that's the second dimension, that's the mother, the father, the family, the work, the home. Now, it's perfectly symmetrical. So this girl has got this. It's not her problem. It's just your parents are a fucking problem. And, you know, so she's also 18. And the reason why they are a problem is because they're not listening to her. We've already been through that. And so my advice to you for her would be, honey, you've just got to find a right way to communicate with your parents. Let's practice. And then you run upstairs, and and then you lie in the bath fully clothed, and then you just say, knock on the door, come in, and then like sit on a stool and say, wow, mum's relaxed. This is a good time to actually have a girly chat with her. You know, play on the fact that the girls are supposed to be doing girly, whatever it is that she needs, some 1 degree shift. And what will happen is we'll see this girl's picture in a couple of weeks, and we won't have that pink here, and we won't have the pink here, because they're like sandbags holding her back. you know.
I will say for reference, so this picture was taken. I'm in Northern California. We have a huge fire, and she was very nervous. She was home alone. Parents took the younger siblings. They were in Disneyland, whatever. She was at home, and she was in charge of 7 acres on their ranch house, making sure that in case they had to evacuate, that she would take care of all of that. So
Wow.
just for reference, when you talk
Yeah,
about the
well,
home,
I'm not
there's
surprised.
really
Yeah.
stress there.
Well, that may explain what I'm going to discuss next, which is the yellow around the head. Now, John mentioned earlier when we use Pro, we like to see white and yellow, and they're in the innermost rings because they are the brightest and it's relating to the brightness. But when it becomes like this and it looks like the person's head is influencing that yellowness, which clearly I would say is what we're seeing here, that is overthinking.
Mm.
So it's mentalizing. If I'm with someone of the same age group of me, I say you're mind fucking. It's overthinking. It's overthinking. It's not just, hey, you're a good thinker here. And actually what happens technically from like a esoteric physiology perspective is when people are thinking, busy thinking, they stop breathing. Just check it out. That's what's happening. They're like, "Arr." And so they just do this little shallow breathing to get the kind of minimum oxygen levels. But from a Vedic perspective, from a global health, spirit, soul level perspective, the Vedas say each person has a preordained number of breaths. And so if you're just wasting them on little shallow widgets, you're not really cutting, the needle's not on the record properly. It's not kind of digging in the groove. You're just kind of like a hover, what are those hover fly on the water? Just kind of like, but not really committing. So the one thing that you can do for this girl, Astrid, is encourage her to build an enjoyable communicative relationship with her siblings and her elders, and also to learn to breathe consciously and teach her that when she's thinking a lot, that's the time to bring in these little things she's learned. There may be some girl on YouTube of the same age of her is like doing pranayams, and she's like gets that girl, so she starts learning how to do the breath. We cannot take horses to water, Astrid. We have to put the signs up and the disco this way and the pills are healthy. We have to say shit to get them there. But we cannot get them drinking. So, that's the dance we do with youngsters. And so I think we've said a lot to her. She's amazingly strong and resilient and solid and balanced and just like, wow. Now you know why her parents trusted her to look after the farm and 7 acres, because she's the right one. She's solid, balanced. When we look at the outer bands, they're nice and clear. You'll see in the future where the green and the orange and the green and the blue, where they all meet. When people are stressed and diseased, they speckle into each other, these color bands. But in a healthy person like this, those outer rings go like a rainbow, red, pink, blue, yellow. They're nice and tight. And there is a little bit of wibbliness in the lines. And so observe that as this throat issue and the parental communication. And the thing is, I would imagine the mind mentalizing that she's doing is making her blood pressure higher. And that's why her eyes are vibrating so much. So tell her that by calming and breathing, she can actually get that eye wobble down, to a more comfortable level, where she's looking at her boyfriend and he's not getting fucking spooked out by it. She's going to have to learn this stuff to navigate this world. Okay, let's do another one of your pictures in your lucky dip, Astrid.
All righty, thank you. Let Let me close this one off.
And a very well taken picture. A third of the picture, the compromise of the clothing has been met perfectly. The hair is back. There's been no issue with shadow. The anomalies were easy to see. Perfect.
Oh, thank you. So this
Right.
is
Okay.
an African American gentleman, so I know that the coloration will be
Yeah, of course, of course. I mean, in fact, recently there's one of our colleagues has been saying that even anyone who comes up with these kind of darker colors, it's obvious, it's often a lack of oxygen. So a similar kind of story that we were sort of, just like well, this person's really like low oxygen on even on a cellular level. So maybe they go in a chamber or something.
Mm.
Now we can see very clearly this fellow's third eye. And I would tease somebody like this. I would say, "Oh my God, you're so intuitive, but you don't trust yourself. What's that about?" I would be like, "Why have you got your shields up on your third eye? That's such a weird place to be like wearing dark glasses." I mean, I think Prince had a pair of glasses with 3 lenses at one point, but it's not really what's required in reality. You want to keep your forehead clear so that you can scan, and yet this guy is very consciously like, nah, I don't want to be dealing with that. So, I would, like I said, I would slightly tease him into like, well, what's that about? Now his shoulders are very, very severely offset. I'm sure each of you can see that. This is where that fabulous transparent plastic ruler comes in, and you slide it down the screen. And then he's like, geez, I didn't even realize that one shoulder is sloping off at one angle and sort of ends up quite high, and the other shoulder is kind of at a completely different angle and
He
is
has
is much lower.
scoliosis.
Pardon?
He has scoliosis and knows it.
Right,
And it shows
exactly.
up in one of the other photos. When we take it from the back, you can see it there as well.
Totally, totally, totally.
Yeah.
But the thing is that he's not honoring his scoliosis in the way that he could be. Like he's just displaying the patterns of someone who's got that, whereas he looks like a super physical, amazing guy. And so what can we do to help him kind of optimize? And so we don't have to see this kind of heavy energy. It's like a lead kind of, what is that? A cape he's wearing, like of heaviness on his shoulders. So it's certainly not helping. Now, is this a lifelong thing with this gentleman, or is it an injury that's triggered it?
The gentleman is in what looks like a prospect divorce situation right now. So I don't know if it would be more of a emotional, psychological situation, more than physical on that end.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, his left arm is also thicker, isn't it, than his right arm? It's almost like maybe he works in like a kind of it's almost like the ergonomics of his career has affected him as well. Do you know anything about his last couple of decades of work?
Yeah, in IT.
Ah, so he's been sitting at a desk with the old mouse story. That's actually probably the most unpleasant ergonomic environment for the human body, as I'm sure you're aware. Um, Fabulous people get such painful wrists and hands. They have to wear these kind of plastic cups just from repetitively, operating things. And to be honest, some people are better at it than others. Some people are like, okay, well, if I sit up straight and, walk around and have breaks, but other people, they're so kind of into their work, they forget that they're even there. And so they've got this phone in like this and their mouse around here, and they're kind of just being an IT professional, and they've got all this kind of stuff going on. Now, when I visited the great Norm Shealy in his office in Springfield, Missouri, he said to me, "This is how you got to do it, mate. You have the ball, I can show you my ball. It's downstairs. What's the 1980s TV like exercise thing that was in that era with the big round plastic ball? What's that called? Okay, it was not a
I
quiz.
don't know.
I'll remember. But do you know those balls that I'm talking about? The really
I
big
think
one.
so. Like those yoga balls that you can
Yeah,
sit
the
on
yoga
the
balls, but the
grounds,
really
right?
big one. I have one downstairs that sits
Mm.
in an egg cup with wheels. It's called a
Mhm.
Zen ball. And it's basically one of those yoga balls sitting in an egg cup. And so when you're on your computer, it's like those MTB shoes. You're always moving around. Anyway, Norm Shealy says that 33% of the time, 33% of the time you stand up. And so you have to have one of those X-Men desk frames. Now, this guy may still be in IT. So, this is what he needs right now. He needs to get the what did I just call it? Zero ball. And he or at least, like the chair ergonomics for a desk
Mhm.
worker is, I mean, they should each be having a $2,000 chair, that springs back, that supports their lower back, they don't get crushed, they can move around, they're out of freedom, not sweaty, modern chair, a really decent modern chair could be $900 without even being the chairman's chair. And most of these guys are sitting on $30 office chairs. The stuffing is gone. So, Astrid, you need to reach into their space when they're body people, when they've got this kind of body issue, and you need to address their ergonomics because you can stroke them and poke them and get them aligned. But if they're going back onto that chair, and it's even the car he's driving. Like, I can tell whether someone is driving a manual car with a dodgy clutch. When the clutch is hard, and if they're like an Uber driver, and you can just see it in the patterns and colors in their biofield. So, it's a sliding scale of self-awareness, self-care, and your very sensible intervention, which makes them aware of these things. And before their neck starts hurting and they actually go like that, they actually have breaks. And so it's like, okay, set alarms on your phone to get up and effing move around, because you can't go many more shades of dark purple, mate, before this is going to be actual pain all the time. This is a window that Astrid has got with this guy where you can see all this congestion building up, darkening, becoming really heavy. And he's like, you're like, where do you want to go? Do you want to end up on those rocks over there? Or do you want to reverse the hell out of this channel and get back into open water? Because if that's what you want to do, you need to persuade your boss to spend $1,000 on a chair. You need to get the right screen for your computer, the right angle. You need to even maybe have some of those pad things that your wrist, if he's like in front of a computer, and then you can say to him, listen, go and take this picture to your boss and show it to him. And say, if you can just give me some room to improve the ergonomics in my actual work cubicle, I'll show you my picture in 4 weeks' time. And this is about productivity. This is about improving productivity, reducing days off work. Our technology is as useful in the workspace for hiring and firing. And is this the right executive to handle this level of stress? Or can we trust this guy to look after our money? There's definitely aspects to that. Anyway, do you
So
have
I do
other
have a
images
question
of this?
for you. Sorry,
Go
I
on.
have a question for you based on this. So I know this gentleman drives a Tesla, and I am curious about the impact of the EMFs on
Yeah.
the body, especially because as a side gig, so he also does, as you mentioned, Uber driving. He
Yeah.
does do certain services like that as well, chauffeuring people in luxury
Yeah.
vehicles,
Well,
specifically a
why
Tesla.
don't you buy
Do you think
a
could be that impact?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, I wouldn't sit in a Tesla, let alone drive one. But what I would recommend is that you buy a box of very simple EMF meters and you sell them to your clients. Say,
Mm.
this costs me $10, you give me $20, and then you've got one. I would also sell them those timers so that they can put them in the wall in front of their Wi-Fi. And so every night the Wi-Fi just switches off just automatically. And if by any chance they're up late, they can just adjust it manually. But there are some very sensible things to be aware of. And the EMFs in your car and your workspace and your home are absolutely, I mean, it's I can tell you for a fact, people can have an extra beautiful 10 years of life, or they can lose 10 years of life based on the EMFs. Whether their house is just a house or whether it's a sanctuary, whether it's honoring the energies of themselves and the technology they're choosing to cohabit with, and how much of a play it has. So yeah, get him an EMF meter and tell him if it goes into the red, trade in his Tesla, because who's going to want to sit in that space? Some people can handle it. They just have thick energy and they can, but I wouldn't sit on a Tesla battery pack for 4 hours a day. No way. I'm sure it's epic, the assault on our biofields. And next week, I very much plan to show and share some images with you all of these rather strange, anomalous cases. And I think I even mentioned in the last session the candy floss effect. I'm all for different effects. We have a gingerbread man effect, we have the snowman effect, and now we have the candy floss, because young people who live in the urban environment, 9 times out of 10 look like they're covered in cotton candy. Their entire field is a beehive of thick pinkness, and it's a protective sheath for urbanites. And it's great because we invented it and we project it out in front of ourselves, and it shields us from a lot of gloop and attack, energetic impacts. But it's heavy. It's like going around with a suit of armor. And that's why kids take stimulants and they don't sleep properly, because they're carrying this fur coat around, this wet fur coat around all day. Bloody heavy. Anyway, food for thought, guys. It's been a brilliant session to interact with you. Lovely that Astrid could share some of her cases and Dolly could share some of her cases. Please send all of the cases that you want us to look at to Tania and I. And between each of us, we're more than happy to have another quick call about actually interpreting images for you, so that if you need to feed back to these people you've got images for, we'd definitely like to help you with that. It may just be, Tania, I've only got 5 minutes, but I looked at that guy, bang, bang, bang. Or it might be, sure, let's go through this. I can't guarantee who's going to be available, but this is why we're building this light platform where all of our senior practitioners who've been using the technology, some of them for decades, and some of them, I mean, some people have done 30, 40,000 cases. You really know what you're looking at. And why would they take so many if this thing wasn't real? Why would you bother? Really, why would you bother taking anyone's picture if it wasn't going to be really importantly helpful for you and for them? So anyhow,
And Thor, I think
yeah,
it's important to add too, if there's any technical questions or anything that you run into throughout the week between, like, feel free to directly message me or Thor, and if you need help with any logistics or
and John,
quality. And John,
And
yeah.
John, yeah, I mean, I would actually say there's a divide. I would say if it's a biofield issue, that's me and you, Tanya. But if it's a technical issue, that's John, because chances are you and I
To
are going to
clarify,
have.
I meant technical as in taking the images technical with shadows or
Oh,
reading, like that kind
yeah,
of
okay,
logistics.
that's
Yes,
totally
but
true.
technical is John for sure, tech.
Yeah, and that's going to be true from now on. Anyway, sir, with the hat, can you quietly and quickly introduce yourself to us and all present?
Yes, greetings. I'm Lawrence, and I'm partnered with Jan to do work with the Biofield Viewer and the Multiscan Pro, and I'm going to reach out with a Facebook friend request, and I'm super grateful for this training and for you guys, and I'll send you a Biofield image.
Wonderful. Well, it's lovely to meet you, sir, and God bless all of you. Have a lovely dinner, and we'll see you all the same time next week.
Wonderful.
God bless.
Okay,
Bye.
bye.
And we're waiting on, I guess we'll give a few. And we're waiting on, I guess we'll give a few minutes and wait for everybody else to join us. I don't know where